Hi everyone. In this tutorial I'd like to show you how to create the wonderful series of wire sculptures in Blender using a Python plugin that's called a Strange Attractor, and it's available from GitHub. Let me pull that window over to show you. And if you go to this address, which I'll put in the information under the video, you can click on the link and come on over here and download it. Click this green button. And what you're going to be doing is, after you download it, it'll come in as a zip file down in the lower left when you're using Chrome. Double click on that and extract this file, attractor.py. And then I'll show you in a minute how to install it then. So let me get rid of that. Actually, hold on a second. I wanted to show you a few of these wonderful things. This one is called the Aizawa, which is one of many of these attractors that are built into that Python plugin. Let me show you a couple more here. Let's see. This one, I'm just choosing these randomly and then rendering them as a metal wire. And let's see what else. This one is kind of nice too. These have beautiful curves, lovely, elegant form, and very simple and minimal. And I like the look of having a stainless steel, brushed stainless steel podium to set them on, and setting them inside of a sort of a photographic box, lighting it with a spotlight also. So take a look at this one. This is in stainless steel. And these are all just attractors that are found inside the plugin. So let's get started. Let me open up Blender, and let's start out with the basic cube, and let's, as long as it's selected, turn this into a podium. So I'm going to hit S for scale and Z, let's see, S and Z, and pull this down on the Z axis like that. And then we can scale it up just a little bit by hitting S and pulling on it. Something like that is good. And even before adding the sculpture, let's build the photo box, as I call it. So I'm going to hit number 1 on my number keypad and left click below the sculpture here. I mean below the this little squashed cube, and I'm going to hit Shift A, mesh plane, and let's scale it. So I'm going to hit S, and let's try number 10, make it nice and generous, and then hit enter. And I also want to hit number 5 on my numpad to get a front orthographic view, as you can see in the upper left here. This way I can align these two perfectly, just like that. Okay, so now I'm going to click the middle mouse button and orbit around and see from my camera position the back 2 corners of the box will be this one and this one. So come on over into object mode either by clicking here or using the tab button, and then hit the letter A to deselect everything. Right click on, before we do that, select the edge selection mode, which is this middle button down here, and then right click, and then hold down Shift, right click, and zoom out by pulling on your middle mouse wheel, and hit E for extrude, and then Z along the Z axis, that's up and down, and then just pull that nicely upward. Okay. So coming on back in, I'm going to left click to put my 3D cursor in the middle of the podium, and now we'll add our strange attractor curve. So I'm going to hit Shift A and use a hold on. I have to shift over to object mode, so hit the tab key and object mode here, and then shift A, and we're adding a curve, not a mesh, a curve, and then scroll down to Attractors. Oh, how do we install the Attractor plugin? Let's do that first. So up under File, you say User Preferences right here, and then click on the tab that says Add-ons, and at the bottom click Install Add-on from File, and then you browse over to where the file is and click on it and then install it, and that's pretty much it. So now I'm going to go, Shift A, Curve Attractors, and let's pick up something somewhat randomly here. Control Z, it's a little bit big. Shift A, Curve Attractors, Sprut D. Alright, it's kind of big and unwieldy, so let's get it under control here. So first thing is I'm going to right click on it and hit S for scale and just pull my mouse in. Scale this down a little bit. Let me hit number 1 on the number keypad and then make this a sculpture whose bottom is narrow, so let's rotate this up. So I'm going to hit R and 90. Oop, too far, so I'll pull it back. Let's see, left click and hit R again and pull it back a little bit, just manually like this. Alrighty, so let's see how this is shaping up. Looking good. Okay, so if I hit A and deselect, what I've got is a curve here with no substance. There's no thickness. So in curve land, what we need to do is add a circle to make this a round shape, like a wire. So again, I'm going to hit, I'll put my 3D cursor over here, Shift A, and Curve Circle is what we're adding. And I want to scale this down, so I'm going to hit S and pull that in, kind of small for now. And we'll come back and readjust the scale of that once we apply it to the curve of the sculpture. So right click on the curve and come over to your Curve Properties tab, which is right next to the modifier wrench, and click that, and then click down under here where it says Bevel Object and click on Bezier Circle. And see what that's done is applied the diameter of the circle here to the curve. So it's still a little bit thick, so I'm going to right click on my circle, S for scale, and bring your mouse in and out until you get a diameter of wire that you like. So that looks pretty good. So good. The modeling is all set at this point, and now we'll set up our camera and our materials. So why don't we do the materials first? The box I'm going to leave by we're in object mode. I'm right clicking on it, and it's by default I'm coming over here to the materials tab. And before I even add materials, I want to be sure Blender render is set to cycles render. And then click new, and BSDF is just what I want, so I'm going to leave that alone. And now I'm going to right click on the the little pedestal here, and I'm going to click Use Nodes, and instead of diffuse, this time I'm adding glossy and roughness, so it doesn't become a pure mirror. I'm going to put in a value of 0.1, enter, and now click on the sculpture and click new again, and instead of diffuse we're going to glossy, and for color I'm going to give it a slight yellow gold color, something like that, and for roughness give it a value of 0.1. Enter. Excellent. So next, let's set up our lighting. So I'm scrolling out and right-clicking on the lamp, or you could choose it up in the outliner here. Either way is good. And over here are the properties for it. And let's try a spotlight first. And let's pull it up and see if it's hitting everything pretty nicely. It seems to be. Okay. Click Use Nodes again. I'm going to leave the size at 1/10 because that'll cast a nice shadow. And leave the color white for now, and strength. Let's try 5,000. Enter. Next, let's set up our camera view. So I'm going to hit 0, and we're almost there, but it's not quite there. So I want to hit the letter N to lock the camera to the viewport. So N on the keyboard, click Lock Camera to View, hit N again to get rid of that. Now I can orbit and pan and so on. I'm going to keep this dimension of the window for the time being. Come over to the camera and device. We want to set it up for GPU compute. I'm going to leave this at 50% for now for the purposes of the video, but on your own renders you may want to bring that up to 100%. This will give me a faster run. Well, I'm going to bring it up. It doesn't matter that it's fast or slow render because I'm going to pause the video. Down under sampling, click that, and I'm going to click Render Samples and bring that up to 300. Enter. And one last thing is to click on the render layer icon next to the camera and click on denoising. Very good. So before I render this, though, I'm going to take a peek and see how it's looking in the viewport shading. So down next to Object Mode, click that and click on Rendered. And let's take a look. It's okay. So I can see the nice line formed by my spotlight, and it's casting a shadow pretty nicely and going to give me a nice reflection and shadow on the base here. So coming out of that back to solid mode, I'm ready to, let me zoom out just a tiny bit by pulling back on my middle mouse button, and now I'm going to hit F12 and let me pause the video. Okay, well, that at 100% took 4.5 minutes to render, but well worth the wait. Look how beautiful this line is, how elegant. It's just lovely, and the way this looks like a brass wire, a pretty heavy gauge, and the way the light is coming in from the upper right and falling across the sculpture, casting a shadow on the base and onto the diffuse board here. I notice that the podium is floating off of the base, off of this photo cube, just a tiny bit, casting this shadow here, which I actually kind of like. But if you wanted to not have that, then just move this down ever so slightly to touch the base. So that's it. Do 2 or 3 of these and save them in your Google Drive, and have fun.